Oh, we have a question. The Bluesmobile from. What's it from? It's from the Blues Brothers film. Uh, yes, no, the Blues Brothers miniature that we have, that we did an episode previously on, is a big question. We're still trying to figure out where that piece came from during production. I feel very confident it came from the production of the film. We did a deep dive on it on one of our previous episodes, and we're still not sure where it came from. You know, there were questions posted in our in the chat log for our previous episode about deleted scenes from the Blues Brothers. Did we check those and that it was used in a deleted scene? Well, we went through all those. We didn't mention it in the episode, but we went through all those deleted scenes, and we could not find anything that would have matched. Now, if there are deleted scenes that are not available publicly, I suppose it's very possible that it was shot on and just never made it to that. But it's not been, the deleted scenes we checked were on DVDs, Blu-rays, any of that stuff, and we couldn't find it. Like to be proved wrong if somebody has been able to match it, of course, but we haven't been able to do that. Someone also mentioned that maybe it was a possible art department reference so that all the cars looked similar. I could see that happening potentially, but not to the level of the build of this car. This car was built. This car was built very heavy duty, fiberglass. It had a metal understructure. It had wheels that rotated. It had lights. There's no way that this was built for that purpose. It could have been used for that purpose, but it wasn't built for that purpose. It was built to be used as a model miniature on camera. So, at least from what I can tell. Going back to the use of it, some people had noted in the comment section on the episode that it was clearly, they think it was used for the scene where the car does the backflip, or not backflip, it does the jump off the bridge, and you see it flipping in the air. It wasn't used for that. First of all, it's too heavy. They did use it for that purpose, when it hit the ground, it would have shattered into a million pieces. Secondly, more importantly, there were at least 4, maybe 6 lightweight versions that had a combination of very lightweight fiberglass shell with foam interior, foam wheels. Those were used. Some of those got destroyed, some of them survived. I believe that is a style that Jim Belushi had on his set of Everybody Loves Jim, I believe it was the name of the show. He had one on that set. According to Jim. And then that have been sold in the last few years through Profiles in History, aka Heritage Auctions. Those are the only ones I know that were the lightweight. This one is very different. Although it is the same scale, it is a very different model miniature. Some other people pointed out, in multiple episodes, why don't we reach out to producers, directors, actors to try and get this information? We do. These people are not easy to get hold of. If anybody has phone numbers for John Landis or for, Bob Gale, give me a heads up. But, we don't have direct access. We know people that know these people, but a lot of times, they're not interested in being on the show. And, it's tough. But hopefully in success, and people start taking us more seriously, we'll be able to have those kind of connections and communication. Oh, I thought you had a question to say. I've got, just so everyone knows here, I've got Caleb and Carson sitting opposite camera, supporting me on this live stream. So if anybody has questions for them, feel free to ask. Martin, on the other hand, is not here. Martin's in LA working on some crazy project. He's always working on something wild and cool.
There was someone who pointed out maybe it was used for the scene where the building explodes, but that was actually a matte painting. They matted out. Matte painted the cars on the street, and then the building was a miniature that they blew up.
So anybody, I don't know if everyone can hear Caleb, but he mentioned that somebody pointed out that maybe it was used for the scene where the apartment building gets blown up by Carrie Fisher's character with the rocket launcher. That was a matte painting, so that was not the car. They actually painted out certain things, and that was the when you see the car there, that's not the car. That's a painting. So let's switch over to. Okay, good. I'm glad. Thanks, Jamie, for telling us we can hear Caleb. Great. If there's any question, I'm seeing the questions pop up and they're disappearing. So if you guys see anything that's important, you should call it out to me.
Someone says hello from Italy.
Hello, Italy. How you doing? Thanks for watching.
Someone says they want to see longer videos.
Well, we're testing the waters on the longer videos. We want to make sure we're keeping people's attention. So we actually, every episode that we shoot, the conversation is at least an hour and 15 minutes to 3 hours. And we basically try to compact that down to something that's interesting to the community that we're part of, the prop community, but also to try and make it broader for people that are not necessarily obsessed with movie props like we are, that might find the investigation interesting or the mystery interesting. So we try to trim that down. But we're slowly getting longer and longer as we go, and we're just checking the details of the feedback. So I'd love to hear if more people want to see longer videos, please post to our YouTube chat section. We'd love to hear that.
Someone says hello from Kentucky.
Hello, Kentucky. Yeah, where are you from in Kentucky?
It's someone else misses prop culture. Do you miss prop culture, Dan?
I do. It was a very tough show to make. Working for the mouse is difficult, but during the time making the show, it was tough. There's a lot of things going on internal at the company, at Disney, and they were trying to find their footing, what they wanted for Disney Plus. My team was fantastic. The people I got to talk to were fantastic. I have some of my favorite moments connected to movie props through that show. Would I do it again? Probably. But I don't see that happening. This is my version of prop culture. Hopefully we can get to the point where we're interviewing celebrities and people that are connected to these things. And celebrity, I shouldn't use the word celebrities. In my mind, celebrities are the people that build this stuff and the people that interact with it. You know, those are the people that, you know, I would want to talk to. What country is Martin from? Is he from Poland? No, he is not from Poland. Martin is a French-German who grew up in the Paris area. And he's lived here in the States since his teenage years. Yes, that is a painting in the background, Mr. Cody. How you doing, Cody? One of the folks on our chat live here is a gentleman who I've worked with many years. He worked for me at Cinema Relics before we did prop culture, and then he left me to work on prop culture. Yes. So he basically left, became independent. We hired him. That was intentional. We hired him on prop culture. He worked on prop culture. He was one of our wonderful producers, and he certainly knows the prop world well. And now he works at Julian's as an auctioneer and a marketing guy. So yes. How you doing, Cody? Yes, that is a painting, and that is the painting of Harrison Ford.
No, he asked if that painting is of Dan Lanigan.
Oh, I didn't read that. No, that is not the painting of Dan Lanigan. There is no painting of Dan Lanigan, nor will there ever be.
You got the hat on.
But actually, that painting I did get from Julian's Auctions years ago. So there you go. There's your call out. Second call out. Any other questions? Let's see. Let's jump on to PKE meter. One of the biggest questions people got frustrated with was when we were shooting the PKE meter episode, we showed a lot of great photography of the exterior of the PKE meter, but we only showed internal photography of the sides and the angles. Well, that was intentional. I did not want to show the insides of that because as much as people would love to see it, especially the builders, I'm concerned that some of the forgers out there would use that as a blueprint to make a replica that would turn into a quote-unquote screen reuse piece. There is still one original missing PKE meter out there, and I don't want some nefarious person to try and replicate it and say it looks just like the one I've got internally, and then try and sell it as the one that was recovered. sorry guys, it's you know, sometimes you got to protect certain details about original pieces when you see a potential for art forgery. So I've done that with that.
Why didn't you turn it on?
Why I didn't turn it on? Okay, so when I acquired it, it had its batteries removed, which were soldered in, and new batteries were installed before I received it, right before I received it. And then when I got it, it worked. It was a setup to recharge as it was before. The batteries no longer work, and I haven't wanted to open it up and desolder the batteries and put new batteries in. So basically, I'll probably have those batteries removed at some point, but I won't be putting new batteries in. It's a very unique power setup. I don't want to have to replace any of the mechanics. I want it to be original as possible. So I'll probably take those batteries out just because I don't want them to explode, the acid leaks, and damage the piece. I will keep the batteries, but we'll keep that part of it empty. They're in the handle. So any of those builders, that's where the batteries are, in the handle. What else? Toon Gun. Let's see here. The Toon Gun, some things that were asked about. The box in the film that I have is one of at least two boxes. The box I have is a thicker box that was made probably after the first box was made. The first box, when he first opens the back of his car and you see it, he pulls the gun out of it. There's two shots used in that. There's one shot of him when Bob Hoskins is holding the box and he's about to open it, and then when he opens it, it's a different, wider shot. The opening box is the box I have. The box that was originally built was probably built to fit a standard size gun that was thin. Now, when you look at the box that I have, it looks like it may have, our initial thought was it was the same box, but they added the bottom to it. But the wood grain is different, the logo is different, so it is a separate box. It's not the same box. So there is another Toon Gun box out there that would be thinner. If anybody knows where it's at. I don't know if it's a Disney archive. I've asked, and they, those guys did not seem to have it. They don't have that much from, at least when I was there, they didn't have that much from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I think probably because it was shot in England, most of it. That was the main. Was there any other notes from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the Toon Gun episode, that stick to mind, guys?
Well, a lot of people would, while they're watching, they would comment, well, they used a real one at the end of the scene, and then by the time we got around to talking about that, they go, editing my comment.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, some people would be making comments, which arguably you do it as when it's fresh in your mind. You're making comments while you're watching the episode. It's like, yeah, that episode, they used a real gun later on. Well, clearly we get to that in the episode. Sometimes the way the episode is edited, it plays out the information in a better way than when the conversation happens. So there is a little bit of jiggling of what things are discussed. So that's probably why people are like, why don't you talk about that? Well, we do. It's just later in the episode. So you got to watch the whole thing. You just don't watch the first 15 or first 5 minutes and then think, oh, those guys don't know what they're talking about. Play it out. Then you can say, those guys don't know what they're talking about.
And sometimes there are things that we talk about that just don't end up in the video.
That's right.
So,
well, there's a lot of stuff we talk about that doesn't end up in the video because we do shoot for up to 2.5, 3 hours sometimes. But most of that stuff is us just goofing around with each other and giving each other shit. You'll see. I know there was one episode where I was giving Martin a little bit too much guff. And trust me, Martin gives it right back. We're all friends, We even though everybody's kind of working for me on this show and this thing, we're friends, and nothing is too privileged. The only thing that's precious here are the props. Personalities aren't. Trust me, I know that.
We got a question.
Yes.
Someone talking about the Narnia stuff and
Yes.
asking if there's more content from Narnia stuff.
Yes, so there will be more content from the Narnia episode. I'll have to confirm. I can't remember exactly. We have a lot of stuff ripped or cut apart. I'm not sure how much we've actually posted. but that's one of my favorite episodes, and I love that movie. We will be doing in our next batch of episodes. I have a complete Peter the King armor costume that I'm going to post. We're going to post an episode. We're going to dive into it and see what it looks like. There's another episode. There's another guy out there, a friend of mine, who's got another King Peter costume as well. That's fantastic. So we're going to probably get him on there. What's the question here? I saw enough of the PK inner workings to be blown away by the craft. It just disappeared by the craftsmanship.
I also don't know how I never realized it shows up in so many other films.
Oh yeah, it's all over. I mean, because the story goes that when it was being made, I'm having a mind blank. The prop maker that we talked about.
Modern props.
Yes.
John Zabrucky.
John Zabrucky. Sorry, John, if you're watching, I forgot your name for a second. John Zabrucky said he had this deal where, to allow him to make pieces to rent to production, which would be cheaper for the film companies, so they wouldn't have to hire prop makers. It was a workaround. He would get inside information about an upcoming film that would need a certain type of device. They would look at the script, they would make some devices, they'd bring it in, oh wow, this is great, we'll rent this. They rent it for that production, and then they wind up using it, and they owned it and wound up using it in multiple other productions. So that's how that kind of happened. And John said he would do that a lot, which is really smart. I mean, and that's how he wound up owning a lot of his stuff. Great design that worked for the productions. They didn't have to pay, if you're a prop maker, that's the last thing you want to hear is that the studio is working around the union. But sometimes it has to happen in some of these films, so it stinks.
Someone said, will you do an episode on the Deckard blaster?
Yes. We have done another episode. We've already shot it. It'll be out in the next couple months. There's honestly, I did a piece with Adam Savage for Tested years ago, and a lot of the details are there, but you can watch that. But we do a deep dive into it and talk about it, and it's an awesome piece. It's one of my favorite things in my collection. I love it.
In Who Framed Roger Rabbit, there's a beautiful mechanical organ.
Yes.
Do you know where it comes from? Is it an ancient piece? Does it still exist somewhere? Have you seen it anywhere?
I am sad to say I do not know anything about that piece, although we should put that on our list of pieces to research, because that organ was amazing. No, I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it was original, if it was prop. It wasn't in the Disney archives. Possibly could have been a rental. I mean, it's a pretty big build, but it could have been just easily cobbled together. I don't know. We'll look into that and see if we can figure something out. And that's a great question. Great question.
Would you consider doing a video of you showing all of your Indiana Jones props? I would watch it 1,000 times.
I would love to, but it's a lot of information, and I'd rather piecemeal it, and be able to dive into specific pieces. Eventually, I'll probably do an episode on what my collection consists of, but it'll be a while. I'll have to. I'd like to dive into some of the major pieces and do deep dives on those before I do a kind of holistic look at the whole collection. And then there's a lot of littler pieces that I can dive into in that episode, but that probably won't happen until next year, I would think. I'm hoping to keep doing these. So my collection is massive. I hope to keep doing these things forever. And honestly, again, looking to work with other collectors and do episodes on their pieces. It doesn't just need to be my collection. I would love to have people come out, bring their pieces out, and we do a deep dive on them and do the research and talk about it. And hopefully they're all good pieces, right? And we don't find anything bad about it, because that's happened a few times in some of the episodes that we have, which we have not released yet, but in some cases we can't screen match something, or we're not sure if it's real, right? Unless you have specific information, it's hard to completely say something's a fake, but you can certainly feel right that it's not right. So we've got another 20 minutes and we'll be out. We were doing this for 45 minutes, everybody, so if anybody has any questions, get them in now.
Any info on the original Talk Boy?
The Talk Boy. I've done a little bit of research on that, but I've never come across a proven original piece. What's interesting about that is they produced the toys based on it, and it was a partnership with the manufacturer. It was very smart. By the time that second film came out, Home Alone was a huge film, and the Talk Boy was a major seller. But I'm not sure what happened to the originals. That's another one we should put a note on to do some research. I'd love to do an episode on like missing pieces, at least from my perspective, and that certainly is one of them. What happened to the Talk Boy? And honestly, one of the pieces I've been looking about information about for years is what happened to the original clocks from Groundhog Day that Bill Murray kept smashing. There had to have been a bunch of them. They had to be programmed to go to a certain time. So what happened to those? Anybody know where those things are? I'd love to get one of those, or at least find out where they are and find out that story.
Do you know any details about the Star Trek TMP refit bridge? I've heard it was ruined by rain from a storm.
I don't know.
Oh, the motion picture, is that
The
TMP?
motion picture. Would have that happened during production or after it was in storage? Because I never heard that. I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan, but I generally lean into Deep Space Nine and The Next Generation. Classic Trek I love, but I've never really followed it in that perspective. Certainly, the motion picture is probably my least favorite, next to Star Trek V, which I think is a piece of trash. But, well, Insurrection. No, well, there's a few bad ones out there, but there's some great stuff. Back to what the question was. No, I do not know anything about the damage. I'll have to ask my buddy Rob Klein, who is a big Trekkie, a prop collector, who's also a huge Back to the Future fan. Speaking of Back to the Future,
Someone just barely brought that up and asked if you had any thoughts on it.
oh yeah, so the Gibson ES 345 guitar that was used in the first film, Back to the Future. I'm sure there's been press everywhere on it. Gibson put out this big press release. They're looking for the original guitar. What happened to it? Big timeline, deadline. What is the date? Like in
It's like 4 months from
4 months from now, they're going to have there's a function happening. Something's going to happen. I don't think that guitar is missing. From the research we've done, it's probably still with Norman's because they've got a huge warehouse. They either don't know it's there or they do know it's there, or it's somebody they know where it's at. It's the big press release, which is like, surprisingly, is probably because Gibson is doing a replica. And that this press is like a organic way of getting people excited about it. And then all of a sudden, hey, look at the replica. And oh, we know where the original is as well. That's just, my premonition on this thing. I don't know if this is true, but I'd say that's a very good educated guess of why they're making such a big deal about it. Another person who knows a lot about guitars from Back to the Future is, again, the guy I just mentioned, Rob Klein. He used to own the guitar, I don't know if it's a Gibson guitar, but it's a guitar that Marty uses at the very beginning of the film when he plugs it into the giant speaker. It's a very kind of yellow, small-headed guitar. He used to own that until recently. And then another collector who's stated this publicly, Arnold Grunberg, owns the guitar that Marty plays in Back to the Future 2, which is meant to be the one from the first film, but is not. So that's part of his public collection that he's got, which is just amazing. Like, Arno's been collecting longer than most of anybody outside of Debbie Reynolds. His sci-fi collection is awesome. But yeah, he's got some great stuff from Back to the Future as well. So he's somebody who knows a lot about that. But yeah, I don't think it's missing. My gut is that they know where it's at, and this is all about creating a replica that sells like the Back to the Future shoes did. Those replica Back to the Future shoes. I bet that's they're attempting to do something like that.
Any plans for a Star Wars 1977 episode?
Yes, I would love to do a Star Wars 1977 episode, but I currently don't own anything from Star Wars 1977, so I would have to bring in, either some missing pieces that have disappeared that we can do a profile on, or have one of my friends who my prop friends who own a lot of the stuff do bring in a piece, or we go to them. Like, I'd love to do a background story on Gus Lopez's Death Star. That's an awesome piece. Or Dave Mandel's Chewbacca mask from the first film. That's an amazing piece as well. But both those pieces really don't travel well, so we'd have to go to them. But hey, if they want to partner with us on an episode, I'd love to do it. I mean, certainly don't think there's any mystery on whether those are real or not, which is part of the fun of our show. Is like there's a little bit of mystery on some of the pieces I'm talking about. What are they? When you really know the background and you confirm it, it makes it a little. I mean, it's awesome, obviously, but it's a little less interesting as a drama that we're trying to apply into our show, realistically, not fake drama, real drama. Anything else?
I'm assuming that the Lost in Space robot that you have is the hero prop. Did you know it was restored so heavily very little of it is still original? I'm assuming they're talking about the older B9, not the one from the Netflix one.
If you're talking about the one from the original show, no, the one we have is a replica. It's not the original. The one you're talking about, I think, yes, the one that's sold in auction, that is definitely heavily restored. There are some original parts on it, but I remember seeing it and being interested because I love robots, but I knew so much of it wasn't original that I wasn't interested in. But I wanted to represent it. So I have a few replicas in my collection, not that many, but on pieces that, like, R2-D2, I'm never going to get an R2-D2, so I have a replica R2-D2. Most of the other robots I have in my collection, that and the B9, and I'm actually working with, currently, Michael McMaster is building me a Forbidden Planet Robbie the Robot, animatronic actually, which he's been talking about on and off on his Instagram for about a year now. But those are the only replica robots that I have. The rest of the stuff, if it's in my collection, it's original. So, we losing power?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. I have the original bubble from the robot. Oh, really? That's cool. That's super cool. Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought I had come across someone who owns that one now for the B9, the original B9, but I'm not sure who does.
There were a bunch of pieces in the Greg Jean
There
auction.
was, yeah. Yeah, you assume they're original. I mean, I'm not an expert when it comes to the B9, so I couldn't really tell you without reviewing notes and talking to people that I know that know more about this stuff than I do. That's the thing about prop collecting. When prop collecting in general, you're involved in so many different pieces as a collector. Usually, some people focus very specifically, which is smart, but you have to kind of become a generalist of information. And then you talk to people who specialize in information. Like I would say I'm more of a specialist in Nightmare Before Christmas as a film, stop motion animation in general. Indiana Jones, I'm pretty good with the first three films, less so with Last Crusade costumes, but props and such. But and generally robots, but not like, the B9, for whatever reason, it was never something I ever saw that I could get in my collection, so I felt like it was, an unobtainium kind of piece. So I'm happy to have a cool replica.
Why don't you wear gloves again?
Gloves. Gloves are, in my educated perception, gloves are not preferable to clean, dry, ungloved hands. Gloves, you lose dexterity when you're holding a piece. You either will hold it too lightly and you might drop it. You might hold it too strongly and crack it. If it's got material on it that could come off and flake off, let's say like my idol, Golden Idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark, the gloves can catch on it because you don't have the dexterity, you don't know it, and the next thing you know, you're pulling pieces off. So, there are certain materials that, like, if something is super delicate, I would rather not hold it than touch it with a gloved or ungloved hands. If something's got a residue on it, I will use gloves, but it's a case-by-case basis. 90% of the time, we don't use gloves here. We just make sure everybody washes their hands regularly and is very careful about holding pieces, handling pieces only when you absolutely must.
Someone in the comments asked if we will do a companion blog to upload like good pictures of all of the props to go along with the episodes for all the fans.
Possibly. It's a lot of work, but as we go through and take good photos of pieces, we could do that, yeah. I mean, certainly the videos that we take, we take our time and do really good beauty shots of them. My background is in still photography, so, I'm very comfortable with the camera. So we've got all different types of weird lenses that we shoot our stuff with sliders and stuff. And we certainly can take, since we're shooting this thing at 4K, we can take screen grabs that are high res. But I don't know if I'd ever upload like 10 megabit or higher photos. It's there's the same thing. Back to the PKE meter. Giving too much detail out there when you have an original piece. There's one thing to get those photos, and of course I take those kind of photos when I go to a studio and I take pictures, but when you have a piece that is specific pieces that you're concerned about replication and forgery, you don't want to give too much information away. And I'm really pretty open with my stuff. A lot of collectors don't want any photos taken, and they'll intentionally go in and modify something, a detail on it, so they're worried that somebody's going to replicate it, and they can change, or they can see what's fake off of theirs based on what gets changed. I don't do that, but I am very cautious about this stuff.
Someone asked, how do you preserve foam latex, or are they doomed to crack and crumble?
There's lots of different ways. I think it's, foam latex is a tough beast if it is done if it's created properly originally, and it's thoroughly washed before it's painted, after it's been made, and you wash it and squeeze all the sulfur out of it. Those type of pieces, if they're protected by UV light throughout their existence, 30, 40, 50 years, probably fine. Pieces that weren't done that, especially with certain paints that may have sulfur and other materials that are caustic, they're going to dry up right away. Stopping them from going through that process, typically you have to take distilled water, and you don't soak it in distilled water, but you kind of put it in elevate it over a bath in a closed container. It will start to absorb it. It will start to get softer, and then you go in and seal it. And usually you seal it with something that's non-porous, that's hard, so it basically holds the shape it's in, because those foam cells that are part of the foam latex are only temporarily absorbing that liquid and will dry out again and actually be worse if you don't seal it. It'll only be movable or flexible for a short amount of time. And not every time, it doesn't work that way every time, but generally foam latex, if I have a foam latex piece, if it's not really thick, because really thick foam, it holds off a lot longer than thin. The thinner it is, the quicker it's going to dry up and turn into dust. Also keep it out of UV light. Really any light, but UV light is very damaging to foam latex in my experience and what I've seen. Interestingly enough, I spent some time years ago, back when Prop Store was doing their auctions. I was involved with them with that project, and I spent a lot of time in Rick Baker's basement at his Cinovation Studios. And there was some stuff that was in bad shape, but in general his stuff was pretty good because he kept it all pretty protected. And after it was used in a film, he kept it. It wasn't being tossed around and moved around or anything like that. So his stuff was generally kept well. And in some cases, like early silicone. Silicone now, if you get a silicone appliance, it'll last a long time. The original silicones, they would separate. So you see stuff from like Star Wars Episode 1 that have become dried, shriveled, cracking messes, and that all this oil has come off of it along with the paint, and then just it turns the piece to junk, and all you have is the fiberglass underskull. I had that happen on a piece of mine, and there was a number of other pieces. So depending, like the Mandalores in Fifth Element had the same problem. The silicone Mandalores had the same problem. There were foam latex ones that are still out there, right? The background ones were foam latex, but the hero ones with all the animatronics were silicone, and those things really don't exist anymore because of the same problem. So it just depends on a case-by-case basis, and that's where, you know, meeting people and learning the specifics of different materials from experts. That's why I don't consider myself an expert when it comes to that stuff. I know people like Tom Spina, who's a materials expert. Tom is a collector, but he also has Tom Spina does designs, he does restoration, he does displays, and now he does, you know, licensed products. He's done really well for himself.
Any plans for a deep dive on miniatures in your collection?
Probably individual miniatures. I don't have that many. I mean, I should say I have stop motion miniatures. I don't have that many traditional miniatures. But yeah, we'll be doing some from time to time. I don't think I'll, you know, it won't be a while before I do an overall, like, here are all the pieces I have in the different films. Unless, you know, maybe I work with Adam Savage and he comes out and does a video with me. But that's not the kind of thing that, you know, that's not our thing. Sorry.
What's your favorite prop?
Kind of like saying what's my favorite kid, which I don't have one. But more often than not, when I'm asked what is the piece that there was a fire happening in your collection and you had to grab one piece, it would probably be the Blade Runner gun.
What is your holy grail piece that you want the most?
Holy Grail. My Holy Grail is unobtainium. It's one of the mid-size AT-AT models from Empire Strikes Back, one of the stop-motion models. I believe they're all owned, all the stop-motion puppets are all owned by George Lucas. So, but that's okay. That way I don't have to pressure myself to try and find one because I know they're all accounted for. And I can go visit them at the museum. Hopefully he shows them at the museum. I know I've seen them on the traveling exhibits, and I was just like, ah.
Speaking of museums, someone just asked in the chat, and we've had comments about it too, about potentially doing a museum in the future or something so that people can see things from your collection.
Yeah, so we've been working on and off for years on two different traveling exhibits that we're trying to get put together. One is a general Lanigan collection, Mammoth collection, or I should say Cimarellix collection traveling exhibit. Another one is robots and AI, pieces from that. We're not that close with either of them. We have the pieces. It's just, you know, getting the business connections with different museums and trying to find a way to do it so that I'm not paying money out of my pocket outside of what I paid for the pieces, which is tough. You know, museums don't typically have a lot of money. But my goal is eventually my pieces will end up in a museum, maybe my own, maybe some other, you know, I partner with a museum and donate them. But, you know, I do sell pieces from time to time to bring additional pieces in the museum, but my goal is not to, you know, when I pass away, that my collection just disappears through auction. I'd like it to stay together, if I can figure that out.
So after the Toon Gun, are there any lasting effects of having been sold an item that turned out to not be what you thought? Do you look at a piece closer to make sure it's right?
Absolutely, yes. I am much more buyer beware, no matter who's selling it to me, to make sure that I'm getting a good piece. I have to be very convinced, and I don't stop researching it after I get it, because there's always new information coming out. So yeah, that's the lasting result of that effect from the purchase of the original Toon Gun, was that, you know, you never know what you got. You're buying a story, and you got to keep confirming that story's correct, because there's always little changes. You're always finding additional stuff. Usually it's not good information. It turns out to make it not as good, the piece, but sometimes it makes it better. You know, you just gotta, you know, at that point I was, you know, pot committed when I finally found out about that Toon Gun. I'd already bought a ton of other pieces and just threw myself into prop collecting and love it, just like I do now. I have to be really, really cautious.
Do you have anything from Harryhausen films?
I don't. I love Harryhausen. Harryhausen pieces are hard to find. There's been drawings and little maquettes in auction, but they go for a lot of money. And although I watched those films when I grew up, it wasn't my focus initially in collecting. And by the time I was able to come across original pieces, they were just out of my price range.
Sid Croft is 94 now. Eventually, all of his stuff will probably get auctioned. Would you be interested in any of that?
Possibly. I met Marty a few years ago through a friend of mine, and I grew up watching his shows, Land of the Lost and H.R. Puffin stuff, and certainly some of my favorite Sid and Marty Krofft stuff is the McDonald's Grimace and Mary McCheese and all those characters that they designed for McDonald's, and they got screwed out of all the money, which was ridiculous. But it's not a good memory in their mind. But I love that stuff. Like if I could come across an original Grimace, I had that toy when I was a kid. I would just go nuts for it.
Have you ever come across props in the wild, like at a thrift store or a random garage sale?
This will be the last question. I have come across a few pieces. Never anything that I found to be worthy of picking up, but sometimes you find pieces that are interesting. Well, I shouldn't say that. One time I was at an auction that was right across the street from a project I was working on in LA, and it was a general auction. They weren't selling movie stuff necessarily, but they had a few things that didn't fit into the normal stuff that they sold, bulk auction. It turned out to be a gun from the TV series Almost Human. Yes. It was a really unique 3D printed thing at the time, and also laser cut plastic, and it just looked like the coolest thing. And I bought it before knowing what it was. And then when I found out it was from Almost Human, which I liked the show, and then I immediately recognized, oh yeah, that's this gun from this, this rifle from this episode. So it's cool. But I'm not somebody that would dive into old, I shouldn't say that. I would go to antique stores and thrift stores occasionally, but it wasn't something that I would dive into. I'm sure there's other collectors that have found cool stuff because they're focused on it. They have that desire to physically find these things in these places. And there's been some cool stuff. I mean, Gus Lopez's Death Star was found in a thrift store. So, there have been some amazing finds, but it's not a commonplace thing. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you staying on and checking it out. Hopefully, you guys found some interesting stuff, and it wasn't too boring. We will see you again. We'll probably do another one of these in a couple weeks.